The evening was supposed to be perfect. James had been saving for weeks to treat his little sister Maya to a birthday dinner at one of the nicest restaurants in town. Maya had just turned 12, and James wanted her to feel special, like royalty for a night. They walked into the glowing dining hall hand in hand, Maya's eyes wide at the chandeliers and soft piano music floating through the air. But the magic shattered the moment the hostess looked up. Her smile faltered, and her eyes narrowed. "Can I help you?" she asked stiffly, her tone flat and cold. "Yes," James said, returning the smile. "Reservation for Williams. Table for 2. The hostess scanned her book, then looked them up and down. "I'm sorry, we're fully booked tonight." James frowned. "That's strange. I made the reservation 3 days ago." He pulled out his phone to show her the confirmation. But before he could, the manager approached. His eyes swept over James's dark skin, then to Maya's braids adorned with colorful beads. He didn't even bother to glance at the phone. "We have a dress code," the manager said sharply. "This establishment expects a certain standard. You'll need to leave." Maya looked down at her new birthday dress, yellow with little white flowers, and whispered, "But we dress nice, James." James felt his blood boil. They had followed every rule, yet here they were, being shoved out simply because of their skin. He stood tall, his jaw tight. "My sister has every right to sit here, and so do I." A few diners turned their heads, curious at the tension. The manager's voice grew harder, his words dripping with disdain. "Sir, if you don't leave voluntarily, I will call security. People like you don't belong here." The words cut like knives. "People like you." Maya's small hand trembled in James's grip, her birthday joy dissolving into humiliation. Tears welled in her eyes. James clenched his fists. Every instinct told him to fight back, to yell, to demand justice right there. But he swallowed his rage. Not here. Not in front of Maya. He took her hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go." They walked out, the sting of stares following them into the night. Outside, Maya finally broke down. "Why don't they want us there, James? Did we do something wrong?" James knelt and hugged her tightly. His voice cracked, but he forced strength into it. "No, Maya. We did nothing wrong. They did." But inside, James was already planning. He wasn't going to let this go. What the restaurant didn't know was that James wasn't just some ordinary young man. He carried a secret identity, one that would expose their prejudice in the most public way possible. And when the truth came out, the same people who mocked him would be left in absolute shock. The night after they were humiliated at the restaurant, James sat in his small apartment, staring at the flickering city lights outside his window. Maya had finally fallen asleep, her tear-streaked face buried against her pillow. Her whispered question still rang in his ears. "Did we do something wrong?" James clenched his jaw. They had done nothing wrong. But how many other families had been turned away, shamed or silenced because of the color of their skin? He grabbed his laptop and opened a folder hidden deep within his files. It was filled with documents, photos, and certificates, pieces of a life he rarely revealed. Few people knew that James was more than just a protective older brother. He was a Harvard law graduate, a civil rights advocate, and currently working undercover on cases of systemic discrimination in public businesses. The restaurant that kicked him out? It was already on his radar. Dozens of complaints had surfaced over the years, families quietly turned away, job applicants rejected without reason, diners treated as less than human. But until now, James had stayed silent, gathering evidence. This wasn't just a ruined birthday dinner. It was the final straw. The next morning, James called Pastor Lewis, a trusted mentor and activist in the community. He explained what happened. The pastor's voice thundered through the phone. "Son, this is bigger than you and Maya. This is the kind of evil we've been fighting for decades, and now it's your turn to take the stand. James nodded, determination sharpening his tone. Then let's not waste time. Later that week, James walked back into the restaurant, not as a customer, but as a lawyer. The same manager who had thrown him out nearly stumbled when he saw James in a tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase. "Good evening," James said coolly, sliding a folder across the counter. "I'm not here for dinner. I'm here because your establishment violated federal civil rights law." The manager's face paled. What are you talking about?" James opened the folder, revealing signed testimonies, photographs, and legal documents. "I've collected stories from families, employees, and customers you discriminated against. You thought silencing one voice was enough, but you didn't realize who you were silencing. My name is James Williams, civil rights attorney, and I don't forgive or forget." The room went quiet. Several diners looked up, recognizing his name. He wasn't just another face in the crowd. He had been featured in local papers, praised for winning landmark cases. The manager stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. This is a misunderstanding." "No," James said firmly, his voice carrying through the lobby. "This is a pattern, and the whole city is about to see it." That evening, James went live on social media. He told the story, not just of Maya's ruined birthday, but of years of silent suffering endured by countless black families at that very restaurant. His videos spread like wildfire. Comments poured in, people sharing their own experiences, voices that had been buried finally finding the courage to speak. Maya sat beside him as he filmed, her small hand resting on his. For the first time, she smiled again. "They can't laugh at us anymore, can they, James?" James kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart, not when the truth is louder than their hate." But James knew this was just the beginning. He had exposed the truth, yes, but powerful people would fight back. The restaurant's wealthy owners weren't about to let their empire crumble without a battle. And soon, James would find himself standing not just against one manager, but an entire system determined to silence him. The video James posted spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, it had over 1 million views. People across the city and even across the country were outraged. Stories poured in from families who had faced the same humiliation. James had struck a nerve, but with the support came the backlash. By the third day, James's inbox was flooded, not only with thank you messages but also with threats. Anonymous emails warned him to drop it or regret it. Social media trolls flooded his comments with slurs. Some even tried to smear his reputation, digging into his past and spreading lies. Maya noticed the tension. "James, are we in danger?" she asked quietly one night. James forced a smile. "As long as we stand together, we're stronger than their hate." But inside, he felt the pressure closing in. He wasn't just fighting a restaurant anymore. He was fighting an entire network of powerful owners and their allies. 2 days later, James was served with legal papers. The restaurant's corporate lawyers were suing him for defamation, claiming his story had irreparably damaged their brand. James laughed bitterly as he read the papers. Of course, they can't deny the truth, so they'll try to bury it in court. Pastor Lewis came over that evening, sitting with James at the kitchen table. "Son, you knew this fight wasn't going to be easy, but you've got the community behind you. People are ready to march, to protest, to demand change. You just have to decide, are you ready for war?" James thought of Maya, asleep in her room. He thought of the countless families who never spoke up because they didn't believe their voices mattered. His fists clenched. "I'm ready." The next week, protests erupted outside the restaurant. Hundreds gathered with signs, "Justice for all." "End racism in dining." "We belong everywhere." News cameras rolled as chants echoed down the streets. The once proud restaurant, with its golden lights and velvet curtains, now stood as a symbol of discrimination and shame. But inside the corporate boardroom, The owners were plotting. "We can't let one lawyer ruin us," snarled Mr. Clayton, the wealthy CEO who had built the restaurant chain. "If he wins, we lose everything." Another executive leaned forward. "Then destroy him. Dig deeper. Find anything that makes him look like the liar. If we can discredit him, the whole case collapses." What they didn't know was that James was already preparing. He had uncovered something much bigger than anyone realized, a paper trail of discriminatory hiring practices, fake dress codes used to keep minorities out, and even internal memos instructing managers to protect the image of the restaurant. The evidence was damning, and if James could present it in court, the restaurant empire wouldn't just face fines, it could collapse entirely. But danger was closing in. Late one night, as James walked home from a community meeting, a black car slowed beside him. The tinted window rolled down, and a voice hissed, "Drop the case, or you and your sister will pay." The car sped off, leaving James frozen under the streetlight, his heart pounding. For the first time, fear for Maya's safety outweighed his own courage. He knew the fight had reached a new level, and now he had to decide. Protect his sister by backing down, or risk everything to bring justice not just for himself, but for every silenced voice. Amara's voice carried through the auditorium like a river that had finally broken its dam. Every word she spoke was a reflection of the pain she had carried, the years of insults, the whispers behind her back, and the way society treated her skin as a curse instead of a crown. But it was also filled with defiance, hope, and strength. The silence after her performance was deafening. Then came a standing ovation that shook the walls. For the first time, Amara felt seen, not as the dark-skinned girl, but as a human being with brilliance that could not be ignored. But not everyone was clapping. In the shadows of the stage, Principal Harris whispered something to a teacher. "We can't let this spread. The press must not get wind of this." The truth was, the school board had received multiple complaints about racial bullying for years. Parents had begged for action, but the administration buried every single report. Amara Assess' performance wasn't just a talent show act. It was a spark threatening to set fire to years of silence and injustice. The next morning, Amara found herself trending on social media. Clips of her performance, secretly recorded by students, had gone viral. Comments poured in. Her words gave me chills. "I faced the same pain. Thank you for speaking for us. This school needs to answer for what's been happening." For once, the world was listening. Reporters began calling, activists started tagging the school, and hashtags like Justice for Amara and #End School Racism began to trend. Amara wasn't ready for fame, but she realized this was bigger than her. The very system that had tried to silence her was now cornered by the truth. And when the press arrived at the school gates demanding answers, the administration knew they couldn't hide anymore. The fight had only just begun. By the end of the week, Amara's story had exploded far beyond the school's walls. News outlets covered it, activists shared it, and parents demanded accountability. The school administration was drowning in pressure, but with every headline, Amara also received more hate, cruel comments online, threats whispered in the hallways, and students who once mocked her now calling her a troublemaker. The weight was unbearable. She began to doubt herself. "Maybe I should have stayed silent. Maybe this fight is too big for me," she whispered one night, staring at her phone as hateful messages flooded in. That's when her doorbell rang. Standing there was Mrs. Carter, a retired history teacher known for speaking truth even when it was dangerous. She had seen the viral video and recognized the courage in Amara's words. "Amara," Mrs. Carter said firmly, "you've lit a fire that's been waiting for years. This is not the time to shrink back. You're not alone anymore." The next day, Mrs. Carter marched into the school with Amara. She held up a thick folder filled with suppressed complaints, testimonies and letters from parents of black and minority students, documents the school had hidden away for years. The press gasped. The evidence was undeniable. This wasn't just about Amara. It was about an entire system that had failed countless children. For the first time, Amara felt the burden lift off her shoulders. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It had become a movement. Students who had once been too afraid to speak began stepping forward, sharing their own stories. The administration tried to hold its ground, but the truth was spreading too fast. And Amara, once mocked for her skin, was now becoming the voice of a generation. But with truth comes resistance, and the people who thrived on silence were about to strike back harder than ever. The school board convened an emergency meeting. Principal Harris and the administrators sat rigidly, sweating under the weight of the scandal Amara had ignited. Parents, reporters, and activists filled the hall, demanding justice. The air was thick with tension, every whisper echoing like thunder. Amara stood at the front, flanked by Mrs. Carter and dozens of students who had courageously stepped forward. Her heart raced, but she held her head high. This was no longer about fear. This was about truth. "Today," Amara began, her voice steady and commanding, "we are not just speaking for ourselves. We are speaking for every child who was silenced because of the color of their skin. We are speaking for justice." The administrators tried to interrupt, citing procedures and policy, but the crowd drowned them out with chants, "Justice! Justice! No more silence! We see you, Amara!" One by one, students shared their stories, parents held up evidence, and reporters broadcast every word. The school board realized that resistance was futile. The truth was unstoppable. By the end of the meeting, drastic action had been taken. Principal Harris was suspended. The board agreed to implement mandatory anti-racism training. A new student advisory council was created to ensure accountability. Amara was invited to lead workshops on inclusivity and justice at her school. The once oppressive halls that had echoed with whispers of shame now resonated with empowerment and hope. Amara looked around at the faces of her peers, some tearful, some smiling, and felt a surge of pride. They had done it. They had turned the tide. Outside the school, reporters captured the historic moment. Social media exploded with darker justice for Amara, and stories of similar battles across the country gained momentum. One small act of courage had ignited a movement far greater than Amara could have imagined. Mrs. Carter pulled Amara aside. "You've changed everything, Amara. Not just here, but everywhere people hear your story." Amara smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It wasn't just me, it was all of us. And this is only the beginning." As the sun set over the city, Amara realized that her fight for justice had only just begun. But now she knew the world was ready to listen, and nothing could silence her.